We've been getting some really worthwhile information through from Fowler's Group on fundamentally managing your finances long term. This one today is a very interesting one for, I guess, lots of people getting on in years who are listening to the program today. The headline reads, trauma insurance. If you've ever had a friend or met somebody who's run into serious illness and realised very late that, this can be expensive, you realise that there's some things you really should know about preparing for serious illness, because so many people, obviously, during the lifespan of people these days are going to run into issues with the finances, out-of-pocket expenses, we'll call them. So I just put a call through to Fowler's, and picking up the phone was certified financial planner Daniel Underwood. Hello, Daniel.
Hi, John. How are you?
Isn't it funny when people going through life and they're having a wonderful time, there's all these things to celebrate, and to a certain extent, because it's not a very attractive matter, they overlook the fact of the likelihood or the possibility of serious illness one day, and therefore they don't make the plans for what they'll need to cover when it comes to the expenses. Tell me about the insurance side of things, trauma insurance, and the importance of trauma insurance.
Yep. So, John, the trauma insurance is really the hidden gem of life insurance. Very few people actually know about trauma insurance and the benefits that it can provide. Trauma is actually paid upon diagnosis of a listed critical condition. So, unlike other forms of life insurance, which look at your capacity to work or recover, trauma is only concerned about the diagnosis. So, it's a very straightforward insurance to claim. And the overarching idea behind it is that if you have the insurance paid upon diagnosis, well, then hopefully your recovery will be improved, as you're not worrying as much about the financial impacts or the out-of-pocket costs of that sickness.
Now, this is a medical question, obviously. Diagnosis of what?
Okay, so a good trauma policy, there are some bad ones, but a good trauma policy will have about 40 listed conditions with things like stroke, organ failure, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, motor neuron disease. Obviously, it's pretty grim. But look, overwhelmingly, most amount of claims are paid for cancers and heart disease or heart attack. The cancers in particular, John, they include things like melanoma, breast cancer, prostate cancer, most other forms of malignant growth. And look, I think given the part of the world we live in, it's hard to find a family these days who haven't been affected by cancer in some ways. So I'm sure you can imagine the claim rates are particularly high.
Well, I'm just thinking, all the ones you listed there are all mainstream. I mean, to say these are diagnoses that would be made in significant numbers virtually every day. So are there things that wouldn't be covered by this sort of trauma insurance?
Yeah, so trauma doesn't cover things including the spine or mental health conditions. It's covering diseases, essentially. So our cancers, our heart disease, things where, unfortunately, you've had that bad diagnosis and you're going to need some treatment to recover from.
What aspect of the expenses are covered?
Okay, so when we look at how much cover you need, we've got to remember that the idea of trauma is to remove some of that financial pressure.
Yes.
And we want to focus on getting better. So home debt is usually a big part of that financial pressure for most households.
Yep.
So we'll start with an amount to, whether it's pay out or clear a portion of the home debt.
Yeah.
And then once that's done, we will then shift our attention to having the cash available for the said medical treatment. So, look, John, individual circumstances vary significantly. So, depending on things like the level of private health cover that people have, potentially the availability of public funding and treatment options. We've got some really wonderful services now based in Cairns, which, provide treatments or help with treatments.
Yes.
But the fact remains a lot of treatments will still be out of town. So whether that's Townsville, Brisbane or interstate, that impact on, the household as a big financial burden, and having some insurance cash to help with those costs is very, very handy.
I suppose talking about claim rates is a bit complicated, but how do you decide how much cover you need?
Yeah, well, look, if we look at claim rates, the claim rates themselves, they're big numbers, right? So there's about $11 billion that's paid out in life insurance to Australian families each year. That latest stat was from 2022. Less than 10% of that was paid to trauma claims. So it's quite a low number when you think about the conditions that it's covering. When we consider how many Australians would suffer from cancer or heart disease, you'd think the claims would be a lot higher. But it's awareness, John. As little is known about trauma insurance, very few people actually have the cover, which unfortunately means they're missing out of that support. So we're pretty determined to raise the awareness of trauma insurance, just so people can get that helping hand when if the time comes.
Exactly, and deciding how much cover you need too is going to be a challenge. What does trauma insurance actually cost?
Okay, again, that's pretty individual. I'm sure you understand that insurance is a pretty personal thing. Insurance will consider your own health and occupation and other risk factors. So you need to sit down with a good financial advisor, understand what your individual options are. But look, if I just give you a really rough indication, a 40-year-old male, someone like myself in good health, hopefully like myself, will pay about $100 a month for $500,000 worth of cover. For the females, if we look at a 50-year-old female, she'll pay approximately $150 a month for $300,000 in cover. So age and sex, have a big part to play in the cost of the insurance. And look, we do realise that the cost is an issue. The cost may not be appropriate for everyone. It's definitely not going to be appropriate for everyone's. But you need to think of the cost as a direct indicator of that high chance of claim. The reason you pay more for trauma insurance than you do for life insurance or disability insurance is that the claim rates are just so much higher because it's paying upon that diagnosis and not considering can you go back to work, what other jobs you can do, etc. So if people want to confirm their individual options, obviously reach out to me, reach out to the Fowlers Group team, and we'd love to have that chat.
Excellent advice. This is very timely, actually. Daniel, how do people contact you or Fowlers?
Yep, so probably the best place is our website, so fowlersgroup.com.au. Make yourself familiar with our business and the people within the business. There's then a contact us or a start your journey function on the website where people can register their interest, and then either myself or someone else in the team will make contact from there.
Excellent update today. Thank you, Daniel.
No problem, John.
Daniel Underwood. Now, that's fowlersgroup.com.au. You can get all that information if you want to expand your awareness of these matters. Get that from the website at fowlersgroup.com.au.